Over here.
There's a bullet hole in my glass
Lynn,
here.
Jim, and
Thank you.
Okay, we're on.
all right, good afternoon. I'm sorry about the delay in getting started. My name is Douglas Kellner, co-chairman. I'll ask the other commissioners to introduce themselves,
Evelyn Aquila.
Jim Walsh?
Gregory Peterson.
and would the staff introduce themselves, please?
Bob Brem?
Bill McCann.
Anna Salicho.
Joe Burns,
Tom Connolly. Again.
Dave Loomis,
John Conklin.
Paul Collins,
Jim Galvin.
Todd Valentine.
And Bob Warren. And would our guests introduce themselves, please?
Sure. Jimmy Vilkine, Capital New York.
Jessica Lino, also Capital New York.
Thank you. All right, the first item of business is approval of the minutes of September 30th, 2013. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are adopted. Next are the unit updates. We'll start with the co-executive directors, Robert Brem and Todd Valentine.
We've had a number of items that took place since our last meeting, specifically related. The agency's budget was submitted. The deadline to get that submitted was the 16th of October. With regard to the budget call letter was a zero growth budget based on our last year's approved budget, which is what was submitted with a budget message. We continue to work with the Deputy Secretary. Todd and I had a conversation with him on Tuesday of this week as to how best to communicate with the Division of Budget of our issues related to insufficient funds. And we continue to have those discussions as to how to complete that process, because in the past we've had a budget side letter, and this year they've indicated that that they aren't receiving budget side letters, but we're working on that. Continue.
I'm concerned about next year, presidential election.
Well, I think it's in order to identify that which we need in order to complete our responsibilities, and it's what are the differences in a state year that cause greater expenses. Also, we have a number of other issues that I think are important to certainly. Bill and Todd and I testified on Monday before the Moreland Commission, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the meeting, but we put a copy of the budget and our testimony just so that to make sure you had a copy in review of that. There was some bit of good financial news since our meeting. We have been working to get the publications in the newspapers that are required by statute for the legal notices, and the Division of Budget had worked out that the State Office of General Service was going to pay for it. So we had a conference call with the parties on both our end and their end to make sure that the paperwork was executed. It's important for us because it's an item that was approximately $323,000 because there were 6, based of course on how many words, and the newspapers that they have to be published throughout every county in the state. So that was good news that that was resolved, and I started to see those public. We did our part, which was get the notices out to the groups to get that done. So that was good news. We continue to work with our hosted agency, OGS, to get a better analysis of the fiscal picture. When they went to the SFS, State Financial System conversion, the types of quarterly reports that we used to receive back when Pat Tracy did them in-house, or when OGS hosted them for us before they went to this new system, were much more on time, and they are much more reliable as to year-to-date expenditures, quarter-to-date expenditures, and a projection to the end of the fiscal year. That has been a little bit more difficult to get out of the current system. So we are working with our contact there. His name is Dan Sachs. He's been working on it. We had a 2-hour meeting with him to go over the details to better understand our needs and our requirements, and we did get a good picture Hopefully, that'll be ongoing. They are still working and getting a number, what the outstanding balance in the Help America Vote Act funds that are not yet encumbered for some specific project. That's important to us for a number of reasons. One, that we get that number agreed to, but we have a number of outstanding issues that are in the planning stage that were originally paid for with federal Help America Vote Act dollars. And we always knew at some point the ongoing responsibility would turn to a state responsibility. So we have to know how much is left and at what point is the unmet need. So we know that he has additional meetings planned with Mary Zaremba and the team that we worked with over all those years when we originally did it later in the month, and they were getting some additional help to do that. So we're hopeful that our later in November meeting with him that we will be getting the final numbers that are reliable. But it's been a risk to us. We've been working on it quite a bit, and it's been a worry. So hopefully we're making progress in that regard. We did have, and in light of that, just yesterday we had a meeting, or 2 days ago we had a meeting with the General Government Cluster Group, and that's the state information technology service process that we are now engaged in this year for the identification of the important IT-related services. And the two that are on the list, in addition to our the two highest priorities on that list are the campaign finance candidate management system and also the refresh of Nysboe, because they're both significant. One is over $2 million, one is over $4 million. So they're on the list as far as a multi-year project to start the review and the approvals, basically replacing the annual technology plan process that we used to use. And budget was involved in that conversation. So I thought it was a very good conversation to answer questions. They better understood what our out-year needs are, when the deadlines are, how real the deadlines are. The important prospect is, where's the money going to come from, and our deadlines are getting close. So that was an important. And now there's some other information in your package with regard to those projects, just to bring you up to speed on what some of the issues are, and I know Dave will cover those in his report. But I think those are some of the highlights of that the last month. And Todd, if you have any others that I missed.
No, those are the highlights, and just a reminder that when all that's going on, there's an election on Tuesday, in case you hadn't missed it. Because and Anna will probably amplify some of this. We continue to deal with, always issues throughout the state that just come up with regards to that.
We'll ask Kim Galvin to give the legal report.
Basically, we've just been doing the routine business of the unit. We've been involved in many of the issues that have already been talked about by the co-executive directors. I think it would be good if Paul just briefed for you his win in the ballot proposition case. That was the highlight of our time here since the last meeting.
The interesting thing about that is that the court upheld the interpretation of the board that indeed the board had the right to actually dictate what the language shall be, and was not merely a scrivener for the Attorney General. And that's what your position was, and that was sustained by the court. And then the court dismissed the case by reason of various procedural deficits in the proceedings. But your ability to take and actually dictate the words of the proposition and the question was sustained by the court. You don't have to just accept verbatim what the Attorney General's office might have sent over.
Well, thank you, Paul, and I know you worked very hard on the litigation, and I thought you did an excellent job.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dick.
Yeah, I thank you too.
And there's no appeal.
That's very good.
And as Fitzero, election operations.
Thank you, Commissioners. Pointing out, taking Todd's lead at Tuesday's Election Day, we have been providing support to counties, answering questions, for some reason, poll watchers is a very hot topic this year. It seems like every election comes with its own little niche, and that's this year's so far. Just to brief you all, the units we conducted a web conference to share training for the Dominion Central Count System. A number of boards have purchased that system but had never counted their absentee ballots centrally before they counted them by hand. So this was a new process for them, and Bob and his team put a presentation together, and those boards participated by web, so it was an excellent opportunity to hear from them and for them to learn some of the handier tips that they'll find will come in handy. We have, in addition to updating our guide on how to run a Board of Elections, which we shared with you at the last meeting, we've now updated the list maintenance guide, which directs county boards in the processing of NCOA information that we provide to them once a year, the monthly notifications of death, felonies, and that kind of information, changes of address, et cetera. So we've updated that a bit. There's a lot of new postal information that has to go into that, and we've sent that on to the committee. There are 4 county board commissioners that are working with us on reviewing the updates and making suggestions, et cetera. So we've sent that on to them for their review as well. Our unit staff, Bob and a few members from that team, are working with the IT department to effectuate the requirements of posting election night results, not only on the county board end to post locally, but also our receipt of election results on election night, those unofficial results. We are continuing to visit boards around the state. We're doing the physical asset audits that we're required to do for the items that were purchased with federal dollars. We're monitoring scanner use. We'll be doing that after the general election, obviously, because that's the information that we're hoping to capture. We are also collecting procedures and forms and documents that boards have created that we'll be reviewing over the next number of months. We will be piloting our new asset management system. I should knock on wood. 5 years into the program, we're hoping that we actually get a product this time, but we'll be piloting it in Saratoga County in mid-November. And if that pilot is successful, phase 2 of the pilot will be in Westchester County. And then we're still hoping for a rollout later this year. And that asset management will not only be a tool for local boards to manage their equipment, everything from scanners and ballot marking devices to whatever laptops or whatever else they may have purchased to implement HAVA, but also signage that they have, the fluorescent traffic cones to help segregate parking spots for election day when they visit poll sites, et cetera. So they can use that to manage their own operations, and it will also record maintenance, pre-election testing, post-election testing. Any anomalies that arise will be posted within that system so that we can see them at a glance and better determine which boards need on-site assistance, which boards need a phone call, which boards might benefit from a broader web conference or a presentation personally at one of the upcoming conferences. We've certified the general election ballot to the county boards. That was done a couple of days early this year. We had to amend that due to substitutions that were made and also the results of a court case in one of the judicial districts that dealt with a nomination and a subsequent substitution. So all those amendments were provided to the boards. We'll be sharing with them today the list of judges that are assigned for election day duties. And we'll do that when we get back to our unit after today's meeting. We were the last unit in the agency, deliberately the last unit in the agency, to migrate to new computers and software updates. Some are managing that transition better than others, but IT has been very hands-on in making sure that we can still do everything we used to do, and we can do even more moving forward. So I'm glad that worked itself out without much of an interruption in anything that we had planned. Other than the routine response to boards concerning ballots and voters and issues related to the upcoming election, that is it for election operations. Joe, do you have anything?
What about your oversight with the New York City Board?
That was very productive, I am happy to say. We spent a number of hours on the phone reviewing some of the new forms that they've developed. They haven't quite grasped the complete handle on a consolidated canvas sheet, but they've made a lot of changes. They'll be implementing a number of those at this election. We're also working with them on a more responsive ballot reconciliation process. They've incorporated that into the canvas sheet, and it really is a bit misplaced there. But they understand the issues. We've been dealing with the election day operations team there and the management team. They've adopted, as I said, a number of the recommendations that we made. Some they can't adopt because it's too late to roll this out to the inspectors and have them really understand those changes in time for the general election. But the committee, I'll call it a committee at the city board, was committed to making those changes in the future in time for the June primary. We've made some tentative arrangements to spend some time together face-to-face here when they come up to the conference in January to review those forms and discuss whatever other issues might be on the table then. So it's been very positive, very reaffirming. I think there's a new agenda there, if you will, and there is a lot that they can take advantage of in the city that is happening elsewhere in the state, and there seems to be more of a willingness to do that now than there was before. So I'm looking forward to a lot of positive progress there.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, John Conklin.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a few of the highlights of our written report. We've been in the news quite a bit lately. Not just the Moreland Commission, but a lot of press inquiries about local campaign finance filings and the statewide ballot propositions, which Tom and I have been handling. As Bob mentioned, we placed the order for the legal notices in all the newspapers around the state. With the 6 ballot propositions this year, that cost us $223,000. We've been working with IT on the development of the election night reporting system, which I'll leave to Dave in his report to discuss. And with regard to NVRA, we've completed the schedule to finish our board reviews by the end of the year for the remaining boards that we haven't visited yet.
Can I only make one correction? You said 223.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. I meant 323. Sorry, that's a mistake. So 323,000.
Starts adding up pretty soon.
Sorry.
And I guess I remind everyone that that the Board of Elections has been asking the legislature over and over again to repeal that publication requirement now that we're in the internet age, and most people would get that information off the internet rather than looking at the newspaper, which would is not a very effective means of communicating that to the public. All right. Anything else for John? Then we'll go to Bill McCann, Campaign Finance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple of highlights. For October, we have registered 317 new committees. We have over 3,100 year-to-date. We've terminated over 1,600 committees to date. We currently have over 14,000 active and registered filers, which is a record. That number continues to go up on a monthly basis. We had our call center processed over 1,500 calls with nearly 13,000 to date, and that's in addition to their work on subpoenas and FOIL requests and other items. Our EOT unit is developing a new seminar presentation, winding down your campaign. Try to be proactive on assisting filers when they come to an end of a campaign to know what steps they might need to culminate their obligations so they don't get caught up in any post-election failure to files and things like that. So they're working on that now. We're also working continuously with ITU on our ongoing projects. We're working on a new software package on our scanning so that we can link documents to a particular filer in our system so we can readily access the data as we're looking at a particular filer. In July, we did bring to judgment, or we sued 381 individuals for failure to file, and 179 were brought to judgment, 149 of those full and 30 partial. This was our first order to show cause with our processor. We have a new process server. It took a little time to get that through the procurement process, but we're actually having a follow-up meeting or a conference call with them next Wednesday to talk about any issues that might have come up on either side, to work out any procedure or processes so that going forward, we know that the process will work appropriately. And then finally, the federal courts have been busy. Last week, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the decision of a lower court and mandated that a preliminary injunction be imposed relative to a particular independent expenditure committee that was as applied, and that has a legal implication. It also has some relationship to another matter that we have, which is the Hispanic Leadership Fund, which is in the Northern District, and there's been some interactions with the Attorney General's office on those litigations, and so I believe in the executive session there'll be some discussion as to the board's posture on those legal matters. So.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then, last but not least, Dave Loomis.
Thank you, Commissioner. In addition to my monthly report, I included in your packets overviews of the major projects that we're working on that we want to at least draw to your attention at this point. I just want to highlight in the campaign finance redesign project, we have continued to work on that project as resources allow. We've met with, as Bob mentioned. Sorry, do you need the handouts or just? Yeah.
I was trying to get them in front of them, but.
Okay.
The candidate management system, we've, as Bob mentioned, met with ITS, the State's Information Technology Services Office, Division of Budget, made sure that everyone is clear on what our resource requirements are, what we need to complete the project. We are down one staff member right now that we're also continuing to work with Division of Budget on to approve the waiver for that item. And this project will continue to push forward as resources allow. The Nysboe refresh project is a project that will be a 2-year project that will it's required as all of our hardware and current software are in need of replacement for the main infrastructure of the system. And we've continued to work with our current vendor and come up with plans and bring in a project manager to design this new system. So, and again, that's another item where we are working with budget and ITS to make sure that everyone is aware of what our needs for this project are. I guess the election night reporting is a separate agenda item, so I'll hold off on updating on that. I did want to also mention, which I failed to mention at the last board meeting, is Hope Hardwick from our unit won an award for IT Service Award from New York State Government Technology. So I wanted to publicly congratulate her on that and a well-deserved award. So.
What did she do?
She was recognized by the government, New York State Government Technology Group as a IT Outstanding Service Award. So she, they had an award ceremony at the hotel next door, and was there to for her work with the campaign finance group on the 5-day letter project and automation of that system. So
that's what
Oh, we certainly
Sorry. Yes. So that's it. Unless you have other questions, and like I said, we can talk about the election night reporting later on.
All right, then we'll move to our business agenda. The old business was the calendar for the 2014 federal primary and general election regulations that are affected by MOVE Act compliance. Bob or Todd, do you want to just explain where we are right now?
Well, we had proposed and talked about a calendar that only addresses the issue that Judge Sharp had ordered us in 2012, which was he set until such time as New York establishes through legislation a change to election law to bring it into compliance with the federal MOVE Act, that he set the fourth Tuesday in June in an even year for federal primary, and directed the board to give him a calendar, which we did in that year, and he adopted a calendar, and that we had prepared a draft to go back to the judge for 2014 in the event that the legislature and the governor don't come to an agreement as to any statutory change, would be at least the basis of the June primary next year. So we have that in your packet as a calendar. We've discussed it. Certainly it would be something available for the judge to consider to implement at his discretion. And certainly he's indicated that should the legislature come up with a different mechanism to comply with the law, that he would consider that and then put that in place instead of our interim solution. So that's our proposal. It carries forward for those people who remember what we did in 2012, the same concepts of being done 54 days before the primary for the certification of federal level candidates and at the general election for federal level candidates, and 53 at the local level. And it adjusted the petition filing periods, et cetera, with regard to federal offices. What we do change in here are independent petitions. We learned in 2012 it was very tight for a congressional independent petition, and we didn't really have that many. But considering that it's a big jurisdiction, the signature requirements are high. When we get the line-by-line challenges, it's a substantial number of staff work that we have to do in order to review them, to be able to schedule a hearing and then have an effective hearing where you can go through, both parties have something to be said, and make that ruling within a very, very short time. It worked in 2012, but in light of some of the other litigation since then, where more people are doing independent petitions because they may get an extra line on the ballot, we recommend that we move for federal office the independent petition to start 2 weeks earlier and to end 2 weeks earlier. It doesn't change the state filing period for state and local level candidates. It only does the federal level, because that's the group that we, the state board, have to complete our work, and the county boards where they're filed at the county much earlier. The deadline is the Thursday after the primary, so that's a really short window when you're receiving documentation. Usually the third week of August, and then the 6 days and the 3 days for objecting is 9 days. You're almost to September 1st in order to have the objection, in order to start that, and that's only on a per committee basis, or per petition basis. So I think we recommend it. That would be the substantive change from the concept that is in here, other than in 2012 they hadn't completed redistricting, so we had to start a little bit later than normal. We go back to a normal number of days to do petitioning and the normal number of signatures to do that are required for federal office. Because we had to shrink the number of days because they didn't have the district lines drawn, we shrunk the number of signatures 2 years ago. We go back to this normal number of days and normal number of signatures for federal office. So I think those are the substantive differences, and that is our recommendation.
Yeah, in summary, we apply the election law as it is today and only make the changes necessary to meet the court's order.
Good. We've had the draft of this calendar on our own agenda now for 2 months, so I think there's been plenty of opportunity to vet it. And so what I would propose is that the commissioners ask Council Kim Galvin and Paul Collins to get a motion before Judge Sharp as soon as possible. And
Commissioner, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we have a proposed order that I prepared. Todd made some changes. I believe this is probably done best by a letter application to the court rather than a formal motion.
oh, really?
Yeah, because that's how we've done it in the past, and if we get the United States Attorney and the Attorney General to sign off, you'll have it much sooner than a formal motion. So I'm looking for authorization to make that application to Judge Sharp.
If I can make a comment.
Sure.
I did write this up for the minutes, so we'll be exact. We're recommending this political calendar, excuse me, to comply with the court's order. It applies to existing election law and only makes changes needed to ensure compliance with the court order to hold federal primary at the end of June. We are not endorsing any legislative change at this time. It's for the state legislature to set the date of the primary, but until then, we are obligated to comply with the court's order.
So the motion will be to have council submit the proposed order to Judge Sharp.
Right.
All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that's adopted. Then we turn to new business.
Commissioner Kellner, under new business, if I might, I'd like to make a motion before the board. We are a state-created agency with certain responsibilities which are defined by law. We operate within budget and personnel constraints. However, as with any government agency, or frankly any corporation or business, nothing is perfect. And those things which are within our control, I think it's our responsibility to take control and change direction when that is necessary. I'd like to put a motion for the board that it be henceforth the board's policy shall be that all anonymous complaints received by the board which are determined to be meritorious and substantive with documentation be fully examined and investigated. And that's my motion. If I just might add that where we receive complaints, most of them are signed by a complainant, and we can see who has submitted it, and and it is vetted. It's important also, however, when an anonymous complaint comes in, and you can see by the detail within that particular complaint that there's substance, and perhaps because of fear or fear of reprisal or for any other reason, the person does not want to sign it and becomes anonymous. I think it is still our responsibility, however, to fully investigate it. So I put that motion forward as the policy of this board from this point forward.
Well, I second the motion, and I think
I'm not a
it
lawyer,
makes a lot
so
of
I'm
sense.
not, I hesitate a little to second.
Well, I think Commissioner Peterson has put it very well, and it makes sense to re-examine that policy, which has been here before any of us were
All
there.
right, then I will
So-
second.
All right.
As, just to add to that, Commissioner Aquila, that many times, let's face it, within any kind of a political race, there are charges, counter charges made back and forth, and sometimes people will try to use this board as the sword of Damocles, so to speak, and a lot of the things that are put to us as complaints can be very, very politically motivated. However, this board can't look at it in that direction. We have to look at it as unbiased and with an eye toward doing the right thing as far as our investigations are concerned. And that becomes a little difficult when you have an anonymous complaint because it's not for us to determine what's political and not political. However, that being said, certainly when somebody comes in and gives us a litany of evidence, and although they haven't signed it, it certainly is our duty and should be our duty to follow through on that.
I would like to, I think you've said it very well, and I don't have much to add to it. I think we all have the same feeling that some anonymous complaints come in are obviously political, and they're meant to do some damage to a person's campaign and their reputation just before Election Day. But others do seem to have more information that we feel that we should be looking a little bit deeper into, that there may be something that we should change in our operation, and that's where we're going. And I thank all the commissioners. I agree.
All right, so those in favor of Commissioner Peterson's motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion is adopted. I think there was another issue that came up from the Moreland Commission, which was this idea that the Board of Elections does not process complaints during the election period. And I think that it makes sense for us to re-examine that. I have some concerns about having the agency get involved in investigations during the time period immediately before an election, because it does smack of partisan involvement, and most jurisdictions, I understand, have similar policies. But I think that we should examine what other jurisdictions do and try to define the policy a little better in terms of what is the relevant time period and how we one of the suggestions that District Attorney Hogan made at the Moreland Commission hearing was the idea that you can still do confidential investigations during that time period that would not have an immediate impact on the election process, and that might be worth exploring further too. I want to point out on the other side, however, that relatively few election lawyers seem to be aware that there is in the election law a special proceeding that is authorized where the court has jurisdiction to enforce the campaign finance laws. And several parties in the last decade have very successfully used that civil proceeding as a means of bringing about enforcement without relying on the Board of Elections to get involved. And so I want to remind people that there is that other remedy. At the same time, I think we should be re-examining the policy to make it more precise and defined, and to make sure that we're not unnecessarily hampering ourselves by having an inflexible policy that could be abused.
Just a quick comment. We're talking about some potential changes within our operation here. I just want, and I know we all know this, but just for the record, that we have understood a great responsibility to the voters to make sure that they have the access to the fair voting possibilities and abilities. But I also would like to put a word in for the candidates. We have to protect the candidates and not allow someone to do damage to someone's campaign or some reputation of a candidate. So what we come up with for changes are going to require a lot of discussion, a lot of cases that we might say, well, be careful if you do this, because as you know, anyone who's run for office, you spend months and months of time going door to door and campaigning at all the places you can go to and spending a lot of money. And to have someone smear your campaign in 10 days or 3 days before an election is not fair. Not fair to the candidate. It's not fair to the process. It's not fair to the electoral board itself. We have to look out for both sides here and protect both sides. That everyone is treated fairly. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we should be discussing in response to the Moreland Commission hearing?
I think that there's one thing that needs to be said is that I think today we've made a step forward, and any organization, if you examine things, can there be a better way of doing it? Yes. And I certainly think that when criticism is undue, well, that's one thing. When criticism, however, is constructive and says, there's certain things you have to look at, I think it's our duty to examine those things and make those changes. And I think that certainly within the next, well, I shouldn't put it this way. Don't put a period on that. Within a very short period of time, I think it is important that this board show that we are doing within our legislative responsibility that's been delegated to us, that we carry those things out by making certain changes within our procedures to make us more efficient, I think more defined, and frankly easier for not only the electorate but for those that the people that we serve. And I think again that we can direct our staff to come up with the changes that we are that are within our control. Certainly, if anything that has to go before the state legislature is not, again, within our purview. However, certain things here certainly are. And we can make those changes here to make us more efficient and carry out our responsibilities appropriately, and then I think that's what we should do, and I think staff should be directed to come up with those things at this point.
Great. One of the commission hearing this week concentrated on enforcement, especially the criminal enforcement issues. And I don't disagree with a lot of the suggestions that they were making, but I would reiterate that I still stand behind our policy of emphasizing that the main mission is to provide for disclosure, campaign finance expenditure disclosure, and that making the disclosure system work is the primary goal. And of course, to make the disclosure system work, you have to have people file, and the norm is that people file without us having to take enforcement action against them. 97% of all the required filings are done on time and properly. It's also equally important that the computer system be as efficient as possible so that the public can get access to that data. And that's all another very significant priority that I wish those who were responsible for our budget took more seriously, because our computer system is really archaic and makes it hard both for the public who want to access the information as well as the people who have to file it. And then I also emphasize that most of the filers are volunteer treasurers who are doing a public service by assisting candidates who are running for office. And indeed, the majority of the candidates who run and are required to file lose and are not elected to office. And they're performing a public service by running, often without any real chance of success, but they do it so that the public has a choice in elections. And we do not want to make the system so onerous that no one will volunteer to be a treasurer or that no one will run for office. And therefore, our resources are primarily geared to helping people file. The law is complicated. Even very knowledgeable lawyers constantly have questions about the interpretations to make sure that that they get it right when they file their disclosure statements, and virtually all of the effort is focused on that, and the enforcement parts of it are really designed to make sure that there are at least some consequences for the people who don't comply with the system. And so enforcement is important as a stick, but more important is to make it easy for people to file and to access the information. And I think that has been our priority, and I'm not inclined to change it. While I still think that we can do lots to improve the enforcement system, and I think we've certainly been trying to do that over the last several years.
I agree. We want to encourage people to be candidates, not to make them turn away because we have so many things that they have to do that they don't even understand. I agree 100%.
Mr. Keller, I think that you put forth a very, very well put forth synopsis of exactly what we're all about, and I thank you, because it's important for people to know, and whoever's even watching this, it's important for them to know that aspect of it. We're not here to beat you over the head. We're here to help you and help you to apply the law and apply it properly and apply the dictates that have been given to us and carry them forth. and I think it's also important to add a postscript to that, we are not a prosecutorial agency. We do not have the wherewithal nor the authority to prosecute. That's up to the district attorneys who receive some of these complaints. But there are a small minority on the grand scale of things. And I think it's important, and I'm glad that you pointed out, that we really are here to facilitate rather than come after people.
All right, well, thank you.
Well said.
So,
We're on A.
yeah, we're on A, okay. So, all right, we have the text before us for the amendment to Part 6210 and repeal Part 6211 of our regulations regarding the central count absentee voting systems.
And 6206.
And we also have an amendment to Part 6206 relating to the designation of polling places and accessibility surveys. We have the text. I think we talked about it last month. Does anyone want to discuss it? Otherwise, we can take it up for a vote.
So moved.
All right, those.
There's an actual resolution written that has been prepared.
Right, it's been circulated. All right, so those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the resolution is adopted, and thank you, Paul, for getting that drafted and done. Dave Loomis will hear now on the election night results project, which we thought was important enough to make a separate agenda item.
Thank you, Commissioner. The project that we're undertaking, based on the legislation from the summer, is to be able to accept the unofficial results from the county boards and upload that into our central web system, and then be able to present those results onto the website. So we've been working a good team effort with the PIO and election operations to build out the system, to come up with the website, to make a system easy enough that works into the county system, so that as they're uploading their memory devices and creating their results for their websites, that they can also create a file that we can then use to upload into our system. So we've worked with and continue to work with all the counties on how to get us that file that we need, how to upload it, and we've been working through them on how to test that and upload it, so that on election night this year, as a proof of concept system, we're going to be showing the results for the 6 ballot propositions. So we'll be able to show those by county and by a statewide total. So that's the goal of the project for Tuesday night.
Are all 58 boards of elections ready on this?
We have, the majority are definitely ready. We have a few counties that we're still working with to refine how they do it, because not everyone does it the same way, and for some of this, just putting it on the website is new to them. So we've been working with them to try to figure the best way for them to get us that information.
And how are you staffing this logistically? I mean, are people going to be up all night on Tuesday?
Yes, we'll have staff here through the night on Tuesday. We've asked that each county board give us their initial results by 10 p.m. so that if there's any technical issue...
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, as a test file to technically test out that. And then...
Some boards will, but
we're not looking for. I'm sorry, not looking necessarily for the
in New York
results.
City, the PMDs aren't even,
Yeah.
they haven't moved them away from the poll site.
Well, but
Right,
hopefully that's because they would be cutting up the little tapes, and they made other improvements at the city to move that process along. But the BMD in the past in New York City came as the second pickup, not the first pickup.
Yeah.
So we are hopeful that the conversations that Ann has had with the city and some of the modifications, that the BMD is going earlier in the night, which will be that alone will help the timing in New York City and in our process.
10 o'clock is not,
Well, it's not early. In many, Monroe County, it's close to being final at 10 o'clock, so it all depends on where you are.
all right, well, I don't want to suggest that we're going to have final statewide numbers.
No, and I'm sorry,
that's
I wasn't suggesting either that. The first nights, we're going to allow, the system is going to allow updates throughout the night. So as county has.
And throughout the night, we mean
Yeah, we expect
all
that.
night, like
Yeah.
you've got staff that are going to be there until the regular staff comes in at 9 a.m.?
Well, we have staff that are going to be there until the majority of the counties are done. With New York City, they're the kind. Obviously, they're going to be there at the latest. We've been working with them. We have automated a process.
New York City typically, after they started using the PMDs, they weren't really finished until 3 or 4 a.m.
Right. That's what they're telling me. So that we'll have, but we have built in an automated process with them so that they are actually sending us updated files going to send us updated files every 10 minutes automatically. So we don't have to man that part of it. So, and they're going to start. The results files in the beginning, we don't expect to be much there, but if there's technical problems, we want to find those out early as we can in the night. So if we don't have a lot of results at 10 o'clock, that's fine. But if we, as we go through the night, we don't want to find out about technical problems at midnight. So that's what we're looking to do. So so we're asking each county board to send us that first file at 10, and then at least a file by their end of the night. So those are, and anywhere in between there, we'll get updates.
Well, good luck. It'll be a good dry run for
Yes.
the 2014 election.
And that's how we're looking at it. So.
The presidential.
And not to over-promise that people are looking for, we focused this year's efforts solely on the constitutional amendments as just to put in place the communication between the state board and the county board to get us the data, what format is the data in. The more complicated next steps are candidates, like Supreme Court and elsewhere, and that's our focus. Learn in this process that we've got the connectivity, what are the standard file formats, are we really dealing with 62 different ways of doing something, or maybe 5 different ways of doing something, and that's been a learning process for all of us. And that by the by the winter conference, which is mid-January, is to take the next step is a conversation with the county boards, because we both need to do things to get ready for next year's election so we can actually get candidate results for statewide offices, and that would be a little
And
bit
so
more
we're not doing the 8 judicial district elections that we have jurisdiction
Not
over.
this year. By the time we got this up and running, there's the connectivity issues and the process issues that were big. So we wanted to do something this year, and the constitutional amendments were something that was easy enough for the counties and us to at least get numbers and how they link the candidates so that we can get the electronic data is important, and it's a next step. So we're really looking to, all that data is coming to us this year, so the Dave's effort will be to get it, and then the next steps are what did we learn in this process we knew better, and how can we standardize, and how do we then do the candidate matching, and it's a lot of work to get to this point, and we didn't want this election to go by without doing a test. This is the test, and really we know it's the foot in the door, and it's an important test, but we have a long way to go to get to the candidate side. And it's mostly because really you have a lot of different coding methods that every county does as to how that data then adds together.
It's the aggregation of the multiple file formats that becomes problematic, that we're just not going to be able to surmount. I mean, we'll get the data and then we'll use that as a test, and that'll help us develop that. But since counties there are a variety of systems that they use to aggregate their election night results, it's presented a challenge to us to try to do an aggregation on our end.
6 contests, yes or no, was a good test. But where you put, how you put the multiple for candidates to go from county to county, and every county puts them differently, is hard.
And we will still post the judicial contest results later, like a day or two after the election, Wednesday or Thursday.
We've never posted the judicial ones till they were final before.
I know, but now we have a statute that says we're required to.
Well, we'll have the data. It just will be we can work on that.
Well, I think you need to take a look at that, but, we do have jurisdiction over those 8 judicial districts, and we should, even if we can't get the instant election night reporting down for those 8 judicial contests, we should still be receiving the aggregate election night numbers from the counties, and even if we have to do it the old way with an Excel spreadsheet.
I'd like to get all the judicial districts,
We'll
because I
pass
don't know
Anna
why
back.
New York City is exempt from our process, but that's another
Well, but
goal.
Anna, I'm sure you do know the reason they're exempt.
I understand.
It's because it doesn't cross, the election law specifically gives New York City jurisdiction over those 4 judicial
Well, and
races.
they're still obligated under the statute themselves to post it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
But,
It'll be available.
but we have the responsibility for the other 8 districts, and, well, I'm glad I raised it, because I think somebody needs to be assigned to get the election night returns from the counties and post them, even though they're not final.
No, they are coming to us. We
we have
just
the
have to
data.
get them into the side that we can.
Right. Well, I guess my point is that there's now a law that requires us to post the election night returns, and so staff needs to just address that, that's all.
If you post it too late.
All right, well, so I think that concludes the regular agenda. We have a tentative meeting date set for December 12th.
Can I say
And-
something about December 12th? December 12th shall be my last meeting. I retired from the board as of,
Oh.
I know, but somebody asked me, one of my older grandchildren, what made you decide to retire? And I said, there's an old cowboy song, you have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And this is my time to fold. And I have macular degeneration in this eye, and it makes it difficult reading. And so therefore, I'm getting treated for it. The doctor says, oh, he's going to cure it, well, this and that. But I rather do the right thing than do the wrong thing. I love coming. I respect everyone that I've met here and become friends with over the years. And I've seen the board get better and better and better under the leadership of you gentlemen, and especially, I got to say, my guy, And so I shall see you on the 12th with the help of God. And then after that, I shall read about you.
I hope not.
Also with the help of God.
Good things, only good things.
Well, we'll miss you. Now,
Thank you very much. I hope they replace me with a woman.
I'm sure we all have a lot to say, and I'll save it to your Christmas gift in December. But you add a lot of balance and a lot of credibility to our group here. So
Thank
don't
you,
give it
Jim.
away. You've given a lot to this organization.
Thank you.
all right, well, with that, I move that we go into executive session to discuss litigation matters and investigations.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And for the people watching at home, we don't expect
We will not be coming back.
to take action afterwards.